Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about both one of the worst and most biased news networks out there today, and also one of their terrible and cringy hosts. As the title of this video suggests, I'm talking about CNN and Chris Cuomo. Recently, Chris has been filming from his basement due to him suffering from that awful affliction that many across the globe are currently dealing with during our crisis. That's truly bad, and I wouldn't wish this sickness upon anyone like this, even if they are some of my greatest adversaries in the political realm. So no, I'm not here to gloat about all that at all, but rather, we're going to be talking about how Chris has reacted and dealt with his supposed situation, which has been exposed in very public ways. Not only has Cuomo continued to film almost full time, broadcasting from his home basement, but also Chris has been sharing bits and pieces of his so-called sickness journey. And since it's all public knowledge and out there for us to see, well, I think it's more than fair for us to talk about it here and go over what's been going on. For example, at one point, Chris was having what he called wacky dreams or hallucinations, saying he saw something about his brother waving a wand or something, rather odd. And there was also a point where Cuomo was questioning his whole existence, even turning on CNN and wondering if his life had turned out okay, and if he was doing the right thing as a reporter. And while that might be categorized as a sort of fever dream by you and your ilk now, well, I would actually say that's where he got the closest to achieving some actual clarity. In fact, the newer part of this story proves that Chris Cuomo has in fact lost his way, and he's definitely a bad actor dealing out lies and fake news to the public regularly. We'll get to his fake little publicity stunt soon and talk about how Chris coming out of his basement from quarantine isn't all it's cracked up to be. It's actually a big lie, and we have proof of it. We're going to discuss that all today soon too, but first, let's take a moment to check out our new sponsor, healthwithnobs.com. In the year 2020, it's so important to keep your body healthy, especially with everything going on in the world today. And I'm here to tell you that collagen may be the closest thing we will ever get to a real fountain of youth-like material. The older you are, in fact, the more likely it's caught your attention, and for good reason. Many health experts now agree that consuming collagen is as crucial as it gets to renew and revitalize how you look and feel. After all, collagen is the most abundant protein in your body and essentially the glue that holds us all together. In fact, after age 20, people produce about 12% less collagen in their skin each decade. For some, it's an even greater decline too. This means that by the time you're, say, middle-aged, you could be producing less than half the collagen you did back in your youth. Even worse, various lifestyle factors you may have been exposed to, like poor diet, smoking, pollution, stress, and excessive sun exposure, well, those can delete your collagen levels even faster as well. So if you want a healthy, safe, effective option to keep your body in good shape, visit my page at healthwithnobs.com and purchase the only collagen on the market that I personally trust, and I'm currently using it myself. That's healthwithnobs.com. Great, now let's dive right into the Chris Cuomo story. He recently had a whole video and segment on his show where he acted like he was coming out of his basement for the first time since he got sick. It was meant to be this sort of heartfelt, positive, uplifting moment where he eventually embraces his family and everything, but there were certainly a few catches in there. First of all, Chris was out of his basement and house just last week, and he was even yelling at innocent bystanders while he was strolling around, walking the streets while infected, with no mask on either. Jesus. And believe it or not, but this isn't even Chris's first public freakout. Just last August, Chris Cuomo had another revealing incident where he went off on some random person who called him a name at a restaurant or something. Yeah, he's got pretty thin skin, and some may remember this first incident because it's what many are now calling the Fredo incident. Basically, someone called Chris Fredo, which is an apt insult derived from the Godfather film series. Basically, they call him Fredo because Chris is a younger brother with issues, much like how Chris is in his family. And obviously, this insult triggered Chris because it probably struck him too close to home, so it resulted in Cuomo blowing up on the guy and calling him out and cursing at him and everything. Very poor reaction and very low class and trashy on Chris's part too, and very unfortunate that it was all caught on camera as well. And well, while last time Chris freaked out, it was not intended to be shared with the world, although it did get shared because someone filmed it on their smartphone, but this time, with this news story, Chris is actually kind of exposing himself. Not in a naughty way at all, don't you you go there, you sick puppies, even though I might have sounded like that, but no. Again, what happened here was Chris and CNN have staged this whole scene where he's re-emerging from his basement, like he's been stuck in there for weeks, but really, he wasn't. For more details on this, let's turn to an article called Chris Cuomo's Performance Shows He is an Insecure Blowhard. Check this one out. On Monday, CNN posted video of pseudo-newsman Chris Cuomo finally emerging from self-quarantine in his Southampton basement, despite Cuomo having been out and about in East Hampton just last week, getting into a fight with a Jack Loser Fat Tire biker who dared to ask why an infected Cuomo was breaking quarantine without a face mask. "Who the hell are you?" Cuomo replied. "I can do what I want." Yes, if we've learned anything about Chris Cuomo these past 3 weeks, it's that he's an insecure, self-important, entitled blowhard who suffers in the shadow of his much more accomplished and respected brother, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Chris's ratings must be something though, because CNN just debased itself by posting and broadcasting this video, Chris in sweatpants and a hoodie at the bottom of his basement stairs, declaring, "Alright, here it is, the official re-entry from the basement." And we're going to get to that video next too, but first, let's dissect what we've read so far. First, we got Chris Cuomo pretending to leave his basement in quarantine for the first time, even though he was out and about just a week ago. This is blatant theatricality and a publicity stunt which no news station should be a part of. I guess we shouldn't be expecting so much from the likes of CNN though. And in addition, Chris's previous walkabout actually resulted in 2 more related embarrassments. First of all, he was caught without a mask on, even though he is sick. And well, I hate to say it, but this is the kind of brazen disregard for health concerns that very likely caused Chris to catch this illness in the first place. And then he spread it to his family as well. Then this guy actually has the gall to double down and attack the random citizen who called him out for it, doing so in Chris's signature lowbrow, curse-filled fashion. Finally, he wraps this fiasco up with saying, "I can do what I want," which both sounds like something a child would say, and also it reflects the mindsets of many modern-day adult liberal-leaning reporters. They are this entitled and they think they are hot items who are untouchable, and they're the keepers of information for all the world. But as they get exposed year after year lately, we can more accurately see that the news people are sad, terrible, awful wannabes whose only way of staying relevant is staging stunts like Chris's basement one, while also towing the line and subjecting the world to their destructive and terrible liberal logic. Next, let's get to the video that's being teased and brought up here. CNN shared this whole made-up stunt live on their airwaves, and I think you're going to have a laugh while we watch it too. Check this out.
All right, let's do a little bit of we here in terms of what this Georgia reopening means for the rest of us and obviously to the people there, and a little bit of me here as well. We had a huge day today in Casa Cuomo. Take a look at this. All right, here it is. The official re-entry from the basement. Cleared by CDC. A little sweaty. Just worked out. Happens.
Okay, pause. An open hand wiping of the brow isn't exactly the most sanitary choice here. Not a big deal, he's probably cleaned up and sterilized his home, but still, he's putting this out on the airwaves amid a health scare, after already being caught sick and not following proper procedures. And then the guy literally says, "I just worked out, it happens." And what kind of humble brag is that anyway? Congrats on you getting a sweat doing a physical workout, Chris, but I think I could speak for most of us watching and say, we'd rather you spent your time elsewhere, like doing something that helps with your job, your career, and some time could be put into you doing some actual research and training as a reporter. You could read a book or do some op-ed research or look into your opponents or something. Anything before you do some kind of workout, which is probably you spending 3 hours running on a treadmill while watching Ozark on Netflix or something. In addition, I've heard about some of Chris Cuomo's workouts recently too, and they actually have embarrassing backstories of their own. In fact, this story from Page 6 has details which reveal one of Chris's former workout buddies, a guy who used to play basketball with Chris in New York, and he says Cuomo was known by fellow players as a tool, jerk, crybaby, and a-hole. Not the most generous characterization by people who interacted with Chris repeatedly and intimately, but also it really shouldn't surprise us at this point either. Finally, the other thing that makes me cringe here about this workout humble brag is Chris is trying to sound tough even though he's clearly not. This is the same dude who had nightly freakouts during his quarantine, which he shared on the internet and TV. And Chris isn't roughing it in his basement at all either. This guy lives in a multi-million-dollar estate in the Hamptons of all places. Talk about rich and pampered coastal liberal elite. Chris Cuomo is the embodiment of that almost exactly to a T. And seeing him try and act cool and tough and down to earth while also running to social media and posting his highly nightly musings and freakouts like he's some sort of 16-year-old girl writing in her diary, well, this is awkward to say the least, but it's also admittedly a lot of fun to watch.
This is what I've been dreaming of, literally for weeks. My wife, she was cleared by the CDC. She doesn't have fever. She doesn't have the symptoms anymore, more than 7 days from her quarantine.
Wow, the CDC must have a lot of time on their hands if they are personally clearing the likes of Chris Cuomo and his family. Most of us would do this at a regular doctor visit or some sort of drive-up testing facility or something, but no, these elitist liberals at CNN and their ivory towers at the Hamptons, they get special treatment apparently. Not sure if Cuomo should be fake coughing on her as she backs away in fear though. I know this is a bit and they're joking, but I'm not sure this is appropriate or fitting, especially on a so-called news channel. But then again, we're already deep inside the coastal liberals and their bubble here. CNN wouldn't have aired this stunt in the first place if they weren't totally out of touch and lacking any integrity. Not only is it all based on a lie that's easily disproven, but also it's not even proper for a primetime news show, even if this was a real story. But these networks are so obsessed with narratives and ratings and pushing liberal agendas, they can no longer see clearly, apparently.
We're still a little scared, so I'll just give you one of these. 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 Bella has, of course, taken the video. This is the dream. Just to be back up here, doing normal things.
Now, I'm no body language expert, but Chris's family here aren't exactly looking excited to see him. This tells me a few things then. First, it's already proven that this isn't the first time he's left that basement. And with that, I think it's implied he's seen his family already a lot too. In addition, I would even go so far as to say Chris's family doesn't really like him that much. Which makes sense since all signs point to him being a terrible, egocentric person who treats everyone else like crap. Sure, you would hope someone like this would treat their family at least a little bit better, but that doesn't always happen. And I wouldn't put it past Chris to also not be the best father. He's likely never home, always talking about work, and only focused on his career and his look and image, over spending time with his kids and being a cool father, and comforting them and taking care. Because if Chris was a cool dad, his kids would at least pretend to be excited to see him here. They're on TV and it's supposed to be a show after all, but instead what we see is Chris's wife pulling away in fear, almost as revolted by this as the rest of us watching, and meanwhile, his kids are just sitting there pretty much emotionless, probably not properly prepared or trained for the amount of fake acting and being dishonest this whole stunt would require of them.
Very quiet welcome to me when I walked up the stairs. We're spooked by this, like families that you've talked to all over the country. But the missiles going down took a toll on us. It spooked the kids. And there's a little bit of a trauma and a recovery process.
Yeah, your kids are shook and scared because you gave them too much information and didn't protect them from all this hysteria. Sure, that's hard to do in this digital age especially, but it's also your kids and your responsibility. Who else would you blame for this, Chris? He'd probably blame President Trump if he could, but really, parents are the ones whose job it is to keep their own kids safe, as well as keeping their minds free and clear and out of drama and bad news as long as they can. In addition, another interesting part of this segment can be seen on the face of Chris's guest here, Sanjay Gupta on the right. The guy has cringe and what the heck written all over his face, even as Cuomo goes on to talk about the trauma, comparing himself to people who have actually had to go through real tragedies like war or something. Well, this picture here is worth 1,000 words. The reaction from Sanjay is priceless, and I think that's because Gupta is a grown man who feels uncomfortable seeing another man cry about trauma and stuff, on his own news show no less. Sorry you had a bad cough and fever for a few weeks, Chris, and I'm sure your family was a bit shook by it, but you also sound weak and out of touch, because while you're crying and complaining and playing the victim, well, you're also being quarantined in a multi-million-dollar mansion in the Hamptons, and in addition, your symptoms never seemed that severe. Really, you're scaring yourselves more if anything, and also, you're hyping up this fake news to get you and CNN more attention and ratings. That's why many are already comparing this lie and fake story to the time Brian Williams, another disgraced reporter, lied about being shot at in a helicopter during the war in Iraq. Yes, people are saying this Cuomo health scare fake news story is basically his Brian Williams moment, and it's going to go down in infamy as one of the worst gaffes in the news media of all time. What do you guys think? Is this a bad look for Chris? Or is it worse for CNN, who are the ones that aired this? Will Chris be held to task eventually for this failure? Or will Cuomo and the left skate this off and get away with spreading fake news once again? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see y'all next time.